Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, just about finished taking issue with Sabretooth, Death Hunt. A dinner in the Eiffel Tower consisted of champagne, French cuisine, and the revelation that Sabretooth was intimate with Mystique, though not knowing it was her at the time. After the tearing of clothes and scaring of fine diners, it's revealed their tryst resulted in a child that the shapeshifter gave up. In lieu of killing her, Victor and his sidekick Birdie head back to the United States, where one last mind scan reveals where to find Tribune, the Gobot cosplayer that put a bomb in Creed's chest.
Cover is simple but fitting for the character. Half of Creed's roaring face with what looks like blood splattering in front of him. Sins of the Father, the final chapter. The beastly brute has commandeered a bus and heading for the Mammon Fiduciary Trust Tower. Closing in, it looks like the lobby is strangely full given the hour. Full of ninjas, naturally, and after crashing into the building, he and Birdie respectively slash and shoot their way through, having only 15 minutes to deactivate the bomb.
How do these two know how much time is left? After accepting the contract, Creed was knocked out and taken from New York, apparently, to his place in Vancouver. And that would have to take probably a couple hours. So, unless a mind scan showed that there was a clock in the room that they can make an estimate from, and we did not see that, there's no way for them to know if the bomb's going to go off in 20 minutes or 10 minutes other than writing convenience.
Also, I find it a little weird that the cover said Sins of the Father, singular, and yet here it says Sins of the Fathers, plural. Just a weird discrepancy. Well, Ellie informs her boss that things in the lobby are getting worse, so they go to Condition Yellow, which might include having to suit up as the Tribune. After Tooth and Bird have done away with all but one ninja, the survivor thus far reveals that after the Tribune took one of their own, they followed the trail to the tower and figured Creed would show up eventually. He throws the ninja through a window and confirms with Birdie that the investment bankers group they're looking for is known as GC. Speaking of, Tribune readies his employees, who arm themselves and are promised with bonuses and stock options should they perform with exemplary fashion.
You take him from his house, put a bomb in his chest, and try to kill him after he kills some broad? Geez, Sabretooth is used to dealing with mercenaries, murderers, and ninjas, but you bankers? Scary. This paraphrase brought to you by the hilarious film Oscar.
As they barricade the doors and cover the fire stairs, Dr. Mabuse, the guy that performed the surgery, boasts the effectiveness of Tribune's team, and how their killer won't reach them before the now 10 minutes on the bomb are up. Sabretooth will never get past the combined battle team of your hungry bankers. That line is just plain hilarious, despite the serious tone of the book. And the doc isn't being sarcastic, since his boss warns him not to underestimate their foe, who wasn't even supposed to find their offices at all. However, security cameras aren't finding the brute anywhere.
Maybe he disappeared. Magic!
No, he's leaping across the side of the building, with Birdie hanging on for dear life. He asks his underling why she didn't know Tribune's identity or location, what with her selling him out in issue 1. Turns out there were cutouts involved, so she never met the guy.
What, like cardboard cutouts? Why didn't you check behind the thing? Silly bird.
Just as it's suggested that Sabretooth might have given up, and some weird dialogue from Tribune saying he never gives up, he crashes through the building. Tribune is overly confident of his fancy weapon, the Charged Hyperkinetic Lepton Impulse Thruster Gun, or Chicklet for short. Yeah, nothing says wound beyond a healing factor like candy-coated gum. But it proves less than capable of ending Creed, who attributes his survival in part to the enhancements Tribune provided, but of course never elaborated upon. As Birdie covers the door, and calling him Mr. Kreese raises eyebrows for the trapped Ellie and Mabuse, Sabretooth admits to letting Mystique walk, then throws his would-be employer/killer out the window. "Flap those arms, boy! might slow you down some.
Oh, I have no joke here. That's just a funny line.
With 5 minutes left on a bomb with a 20-foot blast radius, Victor grabs Mabuse and tells him to start operating. No instruments or anesthesia necessary, or a scalpel for that matter, as the killer prefers to cut himself open. It's a scene that shows you it can still be pretty graphic even if you don't clearly show everything. After Birdie takes out the last of the deadly bankers, a surviving ninja appears from nowhere, which I guess is sort of their thing, and slashes at her, though the damage isn't shown very clearly. Before he can attack again, she saves herself with a mind blast. Mabuse has gotten the bomb out, and the best we can tell is that it's shaped similar to an orb, but that's about it. Tooth throws it out the window just as it detonates, figuring it might have done him in otherwise, and insists on using safety pins Ellie happens to have to close the incision. The Tribune, sans his helmet, is hanging outside the window, taking aim at his enemy when Vix sees his armored form reflected in Mabuse's eye, using the doctor as a human shield in the nick of time to absorb an entire clip of ammunition.
This is exactly why I don't use an HMO.
We see the Tribune's face for the first time, previously having been off-panel or shadowed, as he states that eventually someone will rid the world of Sabretooth and Mystique, standing up for normal humanity against mutants. Creed isn't planning on killing the guy just yet, not until he finds out why he planned all this and what his beef is against mutants. He won't talk, so Birdie, hobbling in, connects their minds, seeing a twisted mindscape of Tribune's childhood memory, of him peeking through a keyhole. On the other side of that door is Mystique, saying the boy must have ran away from boarding school to spy on her, discovering her shape-shifting abilities. Having previously told the boy that his father was a bond trader, she uses her powers to reveal the savage truth. Behind each of the 1,000 doors in the mindscape is a reason for this guy to hate mutants, confirming that the one who wanted them both dead was none other than their son, Graydon Creed.
Graydon first appeared in the X-Men comics only a few months before this miniseries began, so this was more of a development of the character than some big retcon. Fun fact, the founder of the anti-mutant Friends of Humanity hate group is based on a real-life neo-Nazi. Okay, fun is probably stretching things a bit, but you see what I'm saying.
Victor is so unimpressed with Graydon that he says he'd rather have Wolverine as an offspring, which is likely an inside joke to writer Chris Claremont originally wanting Tooth to be Logan's dad, but that's a story for another time. The bigot isn't worth bloody hands, but may be worth a neck snap, but Birdie objects on the grounds that he may well be of the Creed bloodline. Recognizing the woman as his father's escape valve, Graydon reveals a knife and promptly stabs her with it, even though it looks like she saw it coming.
Not much of a psychic, was she? What, too soon?
Birdie's death was the only way for Graydon to hurt his father, leaving him alone with the pain of his horrific actions. Sabretooth throws him aside, now convinced this hateful man is indeed his son. The comic ends with the titular villain walking out, telling Graydon that he'll convince another poor soul to keep his demons at bay, but also leaving with a warning. "You had better watch it, boy. I'm gonna keep an eye on you, here?" And the fallout for this, where Sabretooth is concerned, is continued in X-Men Unlimited number 3.
Thus concludes Sabretooth, Death Hunt. All in all, I can say this story is surprisingly entertaining.
A miniseries focusing on an ensemble or supporting character is usually testing grounds to see if they're interesting enough solo for their own ongoing series. I don't remember one ever spawning from this, but it was an enjoyable enough read, though not without its problems. Issue number 1 of this mini was the second appearance of this character, Birdie, and she ended up with a very unceremonious departure, though she does kind of pop up as memory flashbacks and such in subsequent comics. I'm guessing in the Maverick one-shot here. I've never read it. But it is listed online as a comic where she does make an appearance. Though that would indicate that she did leave something of an impact on an otherwise villainous and feral character.
And it's not like we ever really got to know her. Her loyalties to Sabretooth really flip-flop, and while some of that could be explained away by self-preservation, she seemed defending the guy when she could easily let him take care of things himself or get taken care of. She actually seems to care about him on some level, but it's never really fleshed out. At best, we can glean that she allies with Creed, but is not such a bad person herself deep down.
The story dabbles with the past of a character that was about as mysterious as Wolverine or Rogue at the time, having similar problems with memory. And while you might feel bad for what was done to him in his childhood, the book never lets you forget he's a bad guy. Heck, everyone's a bad guy except for Wolvie, and most of the time he's present, he's itching to kill Creed. At times, the dialogue can seem weird compared to comics today, and part of that is because of the era in which it was written. But some of it is just fun, like Tribune talking about how Sabretooth is anything but a quitter, the deadliness of bankers, or Victor just relishing his circumstances.
However, there are some things that don't add up. Some small, like Birdie and Creed just knowing the name of Tribune's secretary, or why Wolverine and Mystique were meeting for dinner at the Eiffel Tower, other than plot convenience and sales-boosting cameos. But there are things about Turbo Sabretooth that don't make any sense.
Firstly, why bother enhancing someone like Creed, an assassin that can smell out their target, just to kill Mystique? Yeah, she's a sly one and can evade attackers, but in terms of physical strength, she wouldn't have been a match for him before the surgery. Second, at no point are there any given indications of these enhancements, nobody remarking how he's faster, stronger, more agile, or anything that would aid him on such a job. And even if you tried saying it was a lie to excuse putting a bomb in his chest, which also isn't indicated, that would be negated by the fact that Tribune states outright that he put a bomb in Sabretooth's chest. It would have made more sense to just leave out all that enhancement junk, say he's got an explosive inside him that'll detonate unless he kills Mystique, and leave it at that. The only thing you'd have to change is that scene with a chiclet gun, either removing it entirely or just show that it's not effective against a brute that's all muscle and healing factor like Victor.
They toy around briefly with the idea that Creed may have a death wish, but it's not elaborated upon. If he's been ready to die for so long, why not just let the ninjas try their best and kill him? Or go on a TV binge until the bomb goes off? Does he want Logan to kill him first, or does he want to kill Logan himself? Or is it survival instinct?
Then we have Graydon's plan. It's not entirely terrible, aside from the whole make the guy I want dead even stronger part, but there are other problems. Creed should have been suspicious from the get-go that someone with clear resources hired him for a job and was going to pay him in not exploding instead of currency. And since he wanted both his parents dead, why didn't Graydon just send someone to track Sabretooth to Paris and detonate the bomb when Sabretooth had Mystique in his claws? Heck, since Birdie's loyalties were so ambiguous, why not give her the detonator? And another discrepancy in continuity, Mystique says at first that she gave the child up almost immediately, but in Graydon's memory we see that she spent several years actually raising him, though sending him off to boarding school. Why'd she bother lying about it? I don't know, maybe it gets elaborated on in future X-Men titles after this.
And I've mentioned before that the art isn't exactly my favorite. It's kind of scratchy. It lends itself to forms blending together to the point that detail is lost, and making them seem very indistinct when it comes to characters. I mean, would anyone have recognized Graydon Creed if we had a clear shot of his face from the very beginning of the story before the big reveal? It's not like his character design is dynamic or distinct in any way, like Wolvie, Vic, or Mystique.
That said, the style does actually work very well for the series. There's a grit to it, an almost unclean tone, the atmosphere of a filthy world that fits an assassin like the bestial Victor Creed to a T.
When all is said and done, the series is nothing spectacular, but at least is a fun read and is about what you'd expect in a story about the focal character. So that does it for this season of Taking Issue. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in January with more comics, more snark, and more reasons for me to lose my cool. Unless I get bored and take up stamp collecting.